Love often takes unexpected twists and turns, but that just makes the story more interesting.
I caught her, and that was it.
Oh my goodness, I think I'm falling in love with this boy.
I told my husband, if you marry me, you're going to laugh for the rest of your life.
Join us as we continue to bring to life the Canadian love stories of romance, family, friends, and community.
Well, love is the most important thing.
Our philosophy is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about what happens to you. And that's the way we've done everything. We have 2 wonderful sons, 2 marvelous daughters-in-law, and 3 beautiful grandchildren. And it's just like the gold at the end of the rainbow.
The level of trust I have in her judgment. If I'm not sure, I know I will get the right answer from Nancy. There'll be no BS. It's just yes, no, black, white. As a best friend, I know I can absolutely trust her 100% and more.
Welcome back to the Canadian Love Map podcast, everybody. Nancy here. I've got Madison with me.
Woohoo!
And Madison, this is a true story of holiday magic.
Yeah, holiday magic. What a key word for this episode. I'm very, very excited because I, Nancy, did not find this story this time.
It was served up for you.
Yes, and I love it.
I'll tell you, this is a really beautiful story of all sorts of kinds of love, from a love story that's lasted over 50 years to love in action. Our interest was provoked by the fact that they, the Van Warts, Nancy and Bob, gave $1 million to a Canadian hospital a couple of weeks ago, the Dartmouth General Hospital, because both of them feel they owe their lives to this health center. And they raise money every year in another way. So I just wanted to talk to them about the spirit of giving. And this is the season of holiday magic, and they make holiday magic every year. The attitude they take toward the money they have is that it's meant to be shared. And I'm excited to share that philosophy as well.
Absolutely.
Here we go. Bob and Nancy Van Wart. Bob and Nancy Van Wart, welcome to the Canadian Love Map.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great to be here, Nancy.
Now, Nancy, I am going to ask you the first question. I am constantly hearing your husband say the words, my best friend of over 50 years. And the way he describes you has made me want to talk to you about your lives together, but also the exciting things that you're doing for your community these days. So how are you feeling?
I feel very well, actually. A lot better than I did last year.
Yes. And why is that?
I have polycystic kidney disease. And at first, when I had to start dialysis, I found it very difficult. But the nice part about dialysis is it gets better as you go along.
So has it been a year for you of dialysis?
It's actually been almost 2 years.
Wow. And can you describe what that means in your daily or weekly life?
I have 4 days of the week when I can do what I want and 3 when I can't.
Boy, that's a good way to look at it. You know what? You put the good news first, and that's like the glass half full rather than half empty. But there are 3 days that don't look the same as the others.
That's right. I don't try and schedule anything on dialysis days, although in the last couple of months, I haven't found it quite as devastating as I used to.
Why is that?
I think I'm getting used to it. I had to have surgery at one point, and that really laid me flat. And now I'm able to do exercise. I'm able to I can't do it the way I used to, but I can pick and choose things to do. And I get it all done, and I feel quite comfortable with that.
As you get used to the dialysis and you are in a regular routine, there's probably a sense of connection with the people at the hospital as well.
Oh, absolutely. They are the nicest people I've ever met in my entire life. Really, the best. I can't say enough good about them. They really care, and they check on you a lot, which at first I found kind of difficult. Because I'm used to being by myself. It doesn't bother me at all. But they'll swing by. How you doing? And they'll say, oh, I'm fine, thanks.
That's great. And is it just a matter of sitting there while the dialysis happens, lying there? Excuse my ignorance.
Oh, it's a chair, and I have the control. I can make it recline or sit up or whatever. And that's important because you can't sit in one position for 4 hours. I couldn't. It would drive me insane. So I just find my comfortable spot. I take a book of Sudoku puzzles, and I do those. And I find that's a great distraction. Every chair has its own television, but unfortunately, there's not much on first thing in the morning.
Right.
And I try to avoid the news.
Yes, especially when you're going through a process like that. So does that cycle all of your blood
Yes,
through?
pretty much, yeah.
Machine, that's amazing.
Yeah, and the first time I ever went, she said, be prepared because it's like you're running a marathon, but you're not moving.
Oh, because it's exhausting.
It affects
as
your
well.
cardiovascular system in a great way.
Right.
So I find, for example, on a normal day, I will go 8:15 to 12. I come home, I have some lunch, then I lie down and sleep for an hour,
Oh, well, that's
even though I haven't moved all
sensible.
morning.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
But after that, I'm usually fine and I can putter around and do things.
And Bob, what has been your experience of Nancy's experience being the witness and partner?
I think at first it was a bit of a shock when we found out that now she's going to be on dialysis because it does change your lifestyle. But we were talking about this the other day, and I said how easily we've settled into the new routine. I think, and I keep coming back to that over 50 years, when you have a best friend that's going through anything, you do whatever you want to do and can do to make sure that things are made easier for her. And Nancy is the most positive person I've ever met when it comes to this dialysis and the polycystic kidneys. So it's changed our lifestyle and what we're able to do and can't do, but we found alternatives. Like we take in the operas now. We don't miss those at all at the Cineplex. So it's just, we reorganize things, yeah.
You might have traveled to go see an opera before, and now you're watching it in a movie theater instead.
Exactly, for $25 a person instead of $2,500.
Yeah. Okay, well, we are going to talk about money later because you two have made extraordinary contributions to your community. But first, I want to get personal. I love to ask the personal questions and ask about how you both met. Set the scene for me, if you will. Nancy, why don't you tell me what was going on with you before you met Bob?
I had had 1 year of university. I wanted to go into nursing, but I couldn't afford to go to the university program, and they had changed the 2-year program to changed the 3-year program to a 2-year program, and I didn't really know how that was going to work. So I went to work to save some money, and I went to work in the Bank of Commerce. And I was there for about 6 months, and the accountant came around and introduced this very young, skinny little man. And I thought, oh, he's really cute, but he's much too young for me. And that was how we met.
I was going to say, what was that guy's name by chance? Was it Bob?
It was.
Yeah. What were you doing then, Bob, in your life? What was your life like?
Well, it's interesting because we came from two completely different family types. I was raised by a single mom. We were literally, Nancy, dirt poor. There were times there was nothing to eat in the house, not even sugar. And by the time I met Nancy, I had started with the bank, and I often asked them over the years, why did you ever hire me? They said, we're not sure yet, but I'm sure it'll all work out for us in the end. And so, Nancy and I evolved our friendship, really. We became best friends, as I've said so many times before. And then at one time when we were sitting outside, what my mother and stepfather were living in, and the children, it was a camp, really. It wasn't really a house. Nancy sat there in the car and she said, Bob Van Wert, you're going to make something of that Van Wert name. And that just cemented whatever love I had for her at that point. That was it. There was no turning back. So,
wow.
Yeah,
You
so we
could
came from
just,
two different families.
you heard her, but you could also feel that she really believed in you.
Yeah. There was an instant attraction. And can I tell the story about the theater that night?
Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
There were two other young ladies at King and Germain branch who were sure I was going to start dating them somehow. So they invited me out to a movie one night in St. John. I said, sure. I said, why don't we ask Nancy to join us as well. So that got a very cool reception. But there I am with 3 young ladies and myself at the Paramount Theatre in St. John. Nancy and I talked through the entire movie. We didn't stop talking. And this is in my book, Nancy. I remember walking across Charlotte Street in St. John, and I looked up. She had her coat buttoned right to the very chin, long, dark brown hair, and those hauntingly brown, beautiful eyes. And I fell in love. And look, even now, when I talk about it, I get that just crazy, the hairs raising on my arm.
Chills, yeah. I call them
is
truth
true.
bumps.
You
Truth
can
bumps.
fall in love with somebody on the spot. Yeah, I've never forgotten that feeling.
What do you remember about that date? Or was it a date?
Well,
little did the other 2 women know that it was a date.
It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to be a bunch of coworkers going to a movie. But I remember noticing on the way back to when we were leaving that the other 2 girls were hanging back and looking very unhappy. But I didn't know why.
You were spoiling their fun.
Sorry.
Well, I hope they've gotten over it by now. How many years has it been since then?
50,
That would be
51, 52.
Yeah, over a half century. Yeah.
When you told Bob in the car that day that, in so many words, that you believed in him, that he was going to make something of himself, what was the feeling that pushed those words out of your mouth?
I remember saying it. I just know that he seemed like the kind of person that was going to do whatever he said he was going to do. And I was impressed by that because I've known a lot of people who don't do what they say they're going to do.
And was that part of what attracted you to him? I know your initial assessment was skinny guy, too young. How did that morph into, I could date this guy?
Didn't really think about it. Didn't seem like dating. We were friends and we just went and did things together and it just kind of gradually turned into something else.
So, Bob, were you in love with her before it had actually become a relationship, do you think?
Yes, yeah. That night coming across Charlotte Street, that just changed my whole, my physiology. I just knew she was somebody I had to be with. And, we've had some challenges staying, in the same city at times over those years. But at the end of the day, the right thing happened and we came together at the right time. Yeah, I was in love with her from that moment on. She's very thoughtful, takes her time thinking through things, whereas I tend to be more of an activist. Let's just do it because it seems like the right thing to do. So a lot of times I'm able to go to Nancy and I'll throw something out and just make a statement and she'll say, no, I don't think so. And that's the decision. Like it's, and I have to share something else we shared with our daughters-in-law that the Van Wart men have a philosophy that our wives are always right. They're never wrong. And on those rare occasions when they are, we apologize.
Okay, I think you could give seminars. You should do an e-course for other husbands. I'll sign mine up. Can you back him up on that?
Yeah, he's pretty good. The biggest difference between us is the way we were raised. I was raised in a very nuclear family, and my dad worked, and my mother stayed home and looked after the children. And that's the way I ran my family. Mm-hmm. I stayed home for 10 years until the boys got bigger. And then I went to nursing school when they were 8 and 10 years old.
Mm-hmm. Because your nursing plans had gotten derailed by this, what became a romance.
Well, we just got together and then we just got married and we got transferred to Newfoundland.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, let's hear about that chapter. How did the engagement happen?
Well, you came to Halifax, and I always say it like this. She chased me to Halifax because I was determined I was going to live here. I love the city. And you have to know this, Nancy. This is so embarrassing. So I found out she was in town, and I thought, well, maybe we could get together again because we'd been separated for a short period. And you never know, we're going to reconnect or not. So I got in touch with Nancy, and I said, look, why don't we go out, maybe show her dinner on Friday night? Friday night came and went, and I forgot that I'd made a date with her, so I stood her up, first.
Bob.
And that's when the roses started.
The roses. Can you count the number of roses there have been over the years?
I can't count them, but I have a box with all of the little cards in them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So in Halifax, it was just like a natural reconnect. There was no time lapse between St. John and Halifax. And we just started seeing each other, and we'd hang out. We'd watch TV together and just like buddies, really. And when I decided the time was right, I had a Playboy puzzle. And I thought, well, how am I going to give her the engagement ring? I didn't even think to ask her dad if he would, allow the marriage. But I showed up at Public Landing, which is where they lived, and I had her ring tucked in a Playboy puzzle and gave her that to open. And she's looking at the box, and I could tell she's like, what is this? But I didn't have any money to buy something really nice, but I had $100 to buy the ring set. We bought the whole set for $100. Anyway, and I remember her saying afterwards, I had no idea why you gave me a Playboy puzzle. I said, well, that's all I had to work with.
Well, you said maybe they put the wrong one in. You should open it. And that's what I did. And there was the ring.
Oh my gosh, that is, I don't know, Bob, if I'd been your friend, if I would have advised you that was a sound plan, but it seems to have worked out in the long run.
My mother was hilariously laughing. She thought it was the best thing that ever happened.
Oh, she did? Oh my goodness. Well, that is a first for the Canadian Love Map. I've never heard an engagement story like that.
Well, I'm not sentimental because the puzzle is gone.
Yeah.
It has been since I got it.
Oh, that's funny. But you kept the ring.
Oh, yeah, the ring I kept.
Yeah. And how soon after that were you shipped over to Newfoundland?
I was lying in Halifax in the sun. The hair was all bleached out. And I get on this boat to Newfoundland, young kid, thinking, oh, my gosh, I'm leaving my fiance, in another province. And I get out up in the morning. I had one of these nice suites, so I was nice and warm. And I got up on the boat with my shorts and T-shirt. It's in the middle of a blizzard on the western part of Newfoundland. I said, oh, dear God, sorry for saying that. Where am I? What has the bank done to me?
What have we
and
done?
drove across Newfoundland in a blizzard in June.
In June. Well, you knew what you were in for.
Yeah.
When did you get married?
September 4th, 1976.
In Newfoundland or in Nova Scotia?
In New Brunswick, where my parents were living.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we did the traditional thing, little country church, and everybody knew Mom and Dad. The ladies' auxiliary did the dinner.
Isn't that great?
It was really nice.
How would you describe your years together with family? If you had to, put it in an elevator pitch to tell someone what your life has been like, bringing up kids and living together.
That's a very difficult question.
I know.
Our philosophy is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about what happens to you. And that's the way we've done everything. We have 2 wonderful sons, 2 marvelous daughters-in-law, and 3 beautiful grandchildren. And it's just like the gold at the end of the rainbow. But we moved a lot. Mm-hmm. And so far we've moved 9 or 10 times.
Mm-hmm. But you did it willingly because you knew
it was his career.
Right.
Nancy sacrificed a lot as somebody who likes to be home and private, to be able to uproot herself and our family at one time we just built the house and we had to move out of it.
18 months.
Yeah. But then at one point when I was looking at retiring, I notified the bank when I was 52 that I'd be leaving in 3 years' time. I was determined. And then they offered me a job in the Bahamas, I think that whole Caribbean, because the vice, the guy who headed that up, Craig Burrows, reached out and said, I'd like to have Bob here because I think we can own this region. So I sat down with Nancy and I said, what about going there for a couple of years? And she said, I'll be here when you get back.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to say, okay, now that's a move. But no, it was too much of an uprooting probably.
I had just recently been diagnosed with kidney disease.
Oh.
And I didn't want to leave the healthcare system. I thought it was too much of a risk because I didn't know what was ahead. Mm. In hindsight, I could have done it. But I said, I've said yes so many times before. This time I have to say no.
Good for you.
And we stayed here.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I said, no, Nancy's more important. And she's made all the other moves. This one, the answer is no. So I retired at 55.
Wow. We couldn't share the great stories that we do here on the Canadian Love Map podcast without the amazing support of Charm Diamond Centers. They are Canada's largest family-owned jeweler, and they're proud to be putting love on the map. The folks at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. The fact that, Nancy, you got kidney disease has led to a huge shows of generosity on your part. But I want to talk about how that began. And I actually will bring myself into the conversation because when I was probably about 35, I got a call from some guy named Bob Van Wart, and he said, I want to do this fundraiser, and it's for the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia, and I want you to be Elvis. And I was known at that time, because I worked on television, to get some odd phone calls, but that took the cake. You want me to be Elvis? And he explained he was doing this fundraiser with sort of 6 well-known people in Halifax, including the amazing Ruth Goldblum, who I have to mention when I talk about the 6. And it was a fundraiser like no other in the city at the time. It was really original. We were all part of a play, and we were actually Elvis impersonators, and we each had to do our own number. And it really took me out of my comfort level. But because it was for a great cause, I said yes. And that was my beginning of my relationship with Bob. And that was the beginning of the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia's Different Stage of Mind, which went on to raise over $5 million over the next 20 years. So, Bob, how did that idea of producing charity shows start with you?
It actually started back in 1992. I was incoming president for Rotary on PEI. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have a new project instead of going out making benches and cleaning, curbs and that. So I talked with a buddy of mine, and I said, look, let's put on a variety show. It can't be that hard. And we put our first show on. It was for Anderson House, the home for victims of family violence. We raised money for Anderson House, and I set up a scholarship program for kids who came through Anderson House. Didn't care what their marks were so long as they passed. And that first year, we were actually going back to sponsors and saying, I know I promised you 10 tickets, you're getting 4 because we oversold the theater. Like, we oversold the Confederation Center. It was a massive, massive success. And somebody decided to enter that in Rotary International's, project program, where they awarded each year 4 different awards. One for, the 4-way test of Rotary. And the Anderson House Benefit Concert took first place in all 4. So at that point I said, yeah, I think we have something here. And haven't done the show every year, but we've rebranded it back in so I guess around 2015, 2016, rebranded it as Holiday Magic, because that's really what it is. And we haven't looked back, and it's been a major fundraiser.
That was the beginning of Holiday Magic.
That was the beginning in 1992, yeah.
Wow. Nancy, what did you observe about how that kind of project lit Bob up?
Oh, he absolutely loves it. It's wonderful for me to watch him do it. Certainly not something that I can do. So it's quite the experience when you see him when he's in Bob mode.
Yes, describe Bob mode, please.
Well, you get up in the morning and you don't see him until maybe noon or even that evening because he's busy. Mm-hmm. And I always said, you're very lucky I don't mind being by myself.
Right. This is him retired.
And it's worse than that because this is not the first thing that he's done. But he likes to be busy and he likes to accomplish things. And I can't see anything wrong with either of those things. So
that's beautiful. And Holiday Magic has been going for a number of years now. And I've been thrilled to be part of it for the past 3 or 4.
Yeah, that's 4 years. I guess this will be your 4th year.
And we're recording this a few weeks before the actual airing of the CTV show. And I'm thrilled that this year, our sponsor for the Canadian Love Map, our presenting sponsor, Charm Diamond Centers, They have a huge heart. And when I found out that they were going to be your sponsor for Holiday Magic this year, I just thought, yep, that is a marriage made in heaven. So let's talk about Holiday Magic. It will air on CTV in the Maritimes, or where is it going to air this year?
Well, it's an interesting, because I can never get 100% accuracy on that question. Definitely the Maritimes. So we get anywhere from 200,000 plus viewers for our show. But anybody that has CTV as a subscription, they can stream it. I checked that out the other day.
Across
you
the
can stream
country,
it
yeah.
anywhere. I have a friend that did the walk with me in the Camino Trail. He sends me a note after he's watched the show in Spain. Great show. We have a couple we met in Nebraska on a cruise one time. They'll send a note saying, great show. So, how many people can actually watch it? I'm not sure. I just know that because it's CTV, and we do love CTV. I mean, they've been amazing, Nancy. Because it's CTV, the largest, television network in Canada, we know we've got the right reach, going with CTV. And
So it's on their website on December 14th.
I believe that's where you can see it streamed. Now, right now, it's going to be it's taped, but it's going to be shown on CTV's main network at 4:30 on December 14th. And I think I mentioned we've expanded the show to a 90-minute special this year. We've just got such great talent. And then after that, we're waiting to hear if we did have 1 hour they were giving us on CTV2, but now that it's 90 minutes, I'm not sure if we may have given up that hour. Mm-hmm. But we're waiting to see if they're going to do a replay on CTV2.
It's a variety show, but Bob, it's got a lot of power because it raises a lot of money.
It does, yeah, it does.
And you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into it. And I know that you've probably had some tears over the years about Nancy's health issues, but you really made the news. You made a big splash recently when there was an announcement at the Dartmouth General Hospital, where Nancy gets her dialysis, that you were going to make a sizable donation. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what was the process between the two of you to make that decision?
He told me we were doing it.
Oh.
Well, not quite that dramatic. No.
You did.
Nancy, I'm asking Nancy, Bob. Just you hold on there, buddy. So, Nancy, what did he say when he told you about this plan?
Oh, he just said, we're going to donate $1 million over 10 years.
And what was your response?
I said, okay.
Okay, well, you know what? You have quite a good marriage.
Well, at our age, I mean, probably wouldn't have made this commitment 20 years ago because we were still uncertain about economies. And so, but then I'm thinking, I said to Nancy, at our age, the kids are fine. They don't need all of this. What can we do that would really make a difference? We've worked with mental illness. We've worked with all kinds of organizations over the year. This is one that's near and dear to us. Like, this could make a difference for, perhaps not Nancy, perhaps not others in our family, but even others in our community. If we thought down the road that this could help others that have kidney disease, and it's not just a kidney disease, Nancy, it's the effect on the heart and all the other parts of your body. So we're ecstatic that the Dartmouth General accepted this. And if you've met Dr. Tenencourt, he has been the rising star in our decision to do this. He just so committed to what he does. And the technology really got us. So we're looking at accelerating everything because there's 2 other phases to what we'd like to do with the Dartmouth General. And the third phase is, and I've even been out looking at space, we'd love to have a nephrology unit here in Dartmouth. So we're looking at accelerating our commitment and then starting another phase 2, then phase 3. So the Dartmouth General is the right place for us. I mean, we finally found our home for Holiday Magic.
What was it about the Dartmouth General and Nancy, your experience, that made this the right move? And I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who, like me, think, wow, imagine $1 million and being able to give away $1 million. So it's such a significant, beautiful contribution. Why did they deserve it?
Oh, well, that was really simple because a few years ago, Bob had 2 heart attacks, one after the other, 1 year and then one the next year. And he thought, I'll just wait and see if it goes away. And I said, get in the car. So they looked after him so very well. I was really impressed. It's a lovely hospital, but the people were especially impressive. And so that at that point we realized that we want to do more, that if we can. And when I started dialysis, everybody starts in Halifax. Everybody starts at the old VG. And there's not a thing wrong with the people there either. They're all lovely. But traveling is a little bit of an issue between bridges and parking. So I waited 9 months to get to the Dartmouth General. And I'm only 11 minutes away, and I love it.
Oh, well, that makes a big difference when you have to spend 4 hours there 3 days a week,
Yeah.
for sure. And you both, I guess, owe your lives to the Dartmouth General.
Yeah.
It goes beyond just our personal, attachment to the Dartmouth General. We love what they've been doing over the last number of years. They're innovative. They really thrive on finding new ways to do things, new technology. And this Stephen Harding is just a powerhouse. I have to stay away from him because I'd just be nonstop. I wouldn't get any sleep. But
He's the CEO, right?
He's the CEO
Yeah,
of the
he's
foundation. Yeah. And, everybody you meet there is so positive. And they talk about being innovative. It's now a regional hospital. We were successful in helping raise funds for the MRI and the orthopedic wing that went into the hospital. So we like that. We like something that's new. I've always said to Nancy, I don't ever want to just tag on and be part of a committee. If I can't lead the committee, then I'll move on and do something else. Well, that's what the Dartmouth General is like. They are setting the bar much higher, and they're doing it in all the right ways to improve healthcare.
Well, you're helping them lift that heavy bar. It's amazing. And I know that a big part of your donation is going to go to a specific, very innovative piece of equipment, if that's what I could call it. Nancy, can you tell me about that?
The VR, or the virtual reality headset, is going to be used to see how people's brains respond to dialysis. There is a concern that dialysis does affect the way the brain functions, and they want to see if they can figure out exactly what happens and what they can do about it. So they're going to give it to people, put it on people who are in dialysis, and there'll be some kind of testing done through the headset. So I thought, okay, that's fine. I'll give it a try.
And you did try it at the announcement of your donation.
For someone who's not perfectly comfortable in a room full of large people, I highly recommend wearing one of those headsets because you put it on and, everybody's gone. And you're looking around. It's a lovely room with bookcases on one side and a little stove and then the big window with a nice lake outside. I thought, I could stay here.
This is better than that crowded room with people looking at me.
Definitely.
Interesting. Well, it sounds like a fascinating project. And the doctor who is spearheading it, I know has really inspired you.
Oh, absolutely. Dr. Karthik Tenenkor has been, a lead in our decision to, contribute this amount because we know it's in good hands, and he's an award winner for the way he's improved home dialysis for patients. So we just decided when we met with them all, they had the entire nephrology unit there, and we said, they're committed to this. We'll make sure we commit to them. So that's when we announced that it'll be $1 million. That's what it needs over time. Yeah.
Well, they sure seemed very excited about your donation, and no wonder. I think it's extraordinary what you both do together because obviously you're such a team and how much you contribute to the world around you. And I know that every year you do this Holiday Magic show that is an enormous effort. And then I wonder, is there a great sense of relief and maybe a deepening of the joy that you experience over the holiday season?
As Nancy said, I enjoy doing this. It keeps me in touch with young people, artists. It's never the same. Every day there's new things that pop up that we have to work through. But it is such a rewarding experience when we see the show on CTV and say, you had a small part to play in that, bringing these people together. And this year, a big highlight in the show is going to be the Holiday Magic Quintet. They have been just amazing. They're self-managed performers. They've all performed in the show over the years, but they came together, and some of the work that they've done, Nancy, is second to none. And I am looking at doing something quickly with their songs this year. They're that good. unbelievable what they've put together for us. And the whole show. I mean, everybody on the show is second to none.
And Nancy, it must be fun for you to watch it knowing how much effort has gone into it on Bob's part.
Part of it is I don't like to see anything before it's finished.
Oh, yeah.
I like to sit there like the audience does and get the full effect of the show because it's really fun. And our little granddaughter wants so badly to be part of it.
That would be Miss Violet.
That
Miss
would be
Violet.
Violet.
Yes, Miss Violet.
Well, a shout out to Miss Violet. And Miss Violet, your grandparents are extraordinary. Nancy, what do you love most about Bob?
That's a very difficult question because there's not one most. There's a number of mosts.
But that's better than saying there's not one thing. Tell me something you really love about Bob.
He is an absolutely fabulous father and grandfather. And those are things that are really important to me. And he really loved my parents too.
Oh yeah, that's
He
special.
did. He found it very difficult when my dad died because he and Dad were very close. And I thought that was really kind of sweet because he grew up without a dad.
Mm-hmm. Even though he didn't ask him for your hand in marriage.
Well, I would not have liked that.
Oh, there you go.
I'm very independent that way.
Well,
I didn't know that. Oh,
You
I
lucked
feel
out.
much better. I've been feeling
There you go.
over 50 years of guilt.
there you go. This relief courtesy of the Canadian Love Map podcast.
Thank you.
And Bob, what do you love most about your best friend of over 50 years?
It's because she's been my best friend. And, I have a male best friend, and I have to qualify and say he's my best male friend because Nancy is my best friend. And it's because the level of trust I have in her judgment. If I'm not sure, I know I will get the right answer from Nancy. It'll be no BS. It's just yes, no, black, white. And I think that's the key is as a best friend, I know I can absolutely trust her like 100% and more.
Well, you're both wonderful, and I wish you a lot of holiday magic this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you at Holiday Magic.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter. We love sharing love stories of all kinds, and that could include yours. So do you or someone you know have an uplifting tale to tell? Reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram using @CanadianLoveMap or email producer@podstarter.io. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map.
You've been listening to a Podstarter production.